Unbelievable jobs numbers today. Let me just say something. If you care about the economy, if you think that that's a pretty important thing for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your nation, for the health of the future of your children, you're a happy person right now. There are more Americans with jobs right now in this country than at any time in our history. And a whole lot of non-Americans with jobs, too. They're not supposed to have them. Imagine what the jobs numbers would be there, too. But that's a whole other story. Coming up, Stephen Moore, economist, will join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, discuss those job numbers and how impeachment might be affecting the economy. That's all coming up. But first,
they should investigate the Bidens, because how does a company that's newly formed, and all these companies, if you look at, and by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
Ann Coulter is a columnist and an author, and Ann, what I just heard there from the president is a federal crime and impeachable because Shep Smith told me so.
No, it's funny. The hysterical Trump haters think that anything he does in the exercise of the office of the president is an impeachable crime.
Yeah.
They just want this animal out of their sight. Yeah. This must be impeachable. He's sitting at the Resolute desk. That can't be. That's illegal. It's outrageous. It's a high crime and misdemeanor. Meanwhile, what Biden seems to have done, and is very clear and easy to understand, his son being paid millions of dollars with no visible qualifications in exchange for $1 billion in aid to cull off the prosecutor looking at that investigation. That's a federal crime in 18 U.S.C. That is the criminal code, not some BSE campaign finance violation. I finally have figured out, listening to like Dick Durbin just now on TV, what law they're claiming the president has broken. And hilariously, it is a campaign finance law. The most preposterous of all the laws. I mean, anyone who's run for office or assisted anyone who's run for office who has a super PAC, I imagine a lot of your listeners right now know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The rules are very complicated for one thing, and they are not obviously wrong. They are not malum in se. There are things that are against the law because they're against the law.
See, I know.
And that's what I mean about them saying his exercise of the powers of the presidency. Every time he does something that is within his responsibility as the president, they say, no, that's impeachable. I mean, for example, and we'll get to this. I'm sorry, this is probably a long digression. But the whole Russia investigation, the idea that the president of the United States is obstructing justice by, for example, firing James Comey. They were hysterical about that one for most of 2017. Well, the President of the United States has full authority to fire any of the members of the executive branch. In fact, he can call off investigations. He can ask for particular investigations, something that both Bill Clinton and Obama did. See my book, Resistance is Futile. Clinton was directing his DOJ to investigate abortion clinic bombers as Osama bin Laden is planning the 9/11 attack. So what they're claiming here is because this would help President Trump if Joe Biden, who was one of 800 candidates running for president as a Democrat, if he were found to be guilty of an actual crime, not a campaign finance violation, an actual 18 U.S.C. criminal code crime, giving something of value to benefit his family, and yet, as a public official, that would help Trump. Well, okay, but then everything the Democrats are doing would help them if they impeach him, for example.
Right.
That would help them, wouldn't it? So everything they're doing is exactly as impeachable as what they are claiming, and exactly as illegal, and corrupt as what they're claiming Trump is doing. Of course, it's not for his personal benefit. It's not so Jared or or Don Jr. can be paid millions of dollars. He's investigating corruption of the opposing party. What are they doing?
And, passing the tax cut may have helped his campaign,
right.
So that's impeachable. Building a wall really would have helped his campaign and his reelection if only he would.
As long as you mention it, if they're going to impeach him, that's what they should.
There you go. He might as well
wall.
go down swinging. Ann Coulter is again, and that's not a diversion to talk about investigating Russia. In fact, it's the subject of your column. It's a great one as usual. You ask a lot of questions for a president. Back to the campaign finance violations. You just triggered something. Didn't Joe Scarborough and Michael Avenatti assure me that paying Stormy Daniels for signing a non-disclosure act was also a campaign finance violation? I mean,
their position, again, as I explain in Resistance is Futile, is that, if Trump got an appendectomy, well, yeah, that's to help his campaign. Larry, he can't run for office if he's dead. That's their theory.
Yeah.
Anything he does, except they're actually going specifically at what he's allowed to do as the president. It looks pretty sleazy, and their only defense to what Joe Biden did is, that's been investigated. Okay, let's cut to a commercial break now.
Right.
No,
By the
I
way,
think people understand. It is something that is understandably corrupt, not surprisingly against the law, and to say, no, the media investigated that, and Loretta Lynch investigated that. Would they accept this if Trump were saying, oh, no, I didn't do anything wrong? Attorney General Sessions investigated that. Attorney General Bill Barr accepted that. That's what they're saying to us.
Jeff, they're saying worse than that. They're actually saying the Ukrainian prosecutor investigated and found it didn't violate Ukrainian law, which by their own admission is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. But yeah, it didn't violate their law.
No, and as I describe in my column, which I think is useful this week, the reason Trump asked about, forget Biden, but also CrowdStrike in Ukraine, and the Australian diplomat of the Australian Prime Minister is that these are part of the scrolling series of excuses for the Obama administration to help their political fortunes, deployed the FBI to investigate a presidential campaign. We have spent 3 years, millions of dollars. They've found nothing, goose eggs on the Russian collusion business, and the FBI, as I trace, having spent weeks on Nexus to confirm that my account is correct, the FBI has thrown out excuse after excuse for why they were investigating Trump. And the last one they have landed on, as each one would be shot down, was that this Australian diplomat said to George Papadopoulos, or we're drinking at night. It's the George Papadopoulos thing. And Papadopoulos said, I have inside information. The Russians have Hillary's emails. I go through in my book. I couldn't do it in the detail in my column this week. Every single news outlet in America, in England, throughout the English-speaking world thought that Russia had Hillary's emails. It's like that line in Dr. Strangelove. Yes, the Russians knew about it from reading it in the New York Times. Yeah. That's how Papadopoulos knew about it.
Exactly. That was his inside info. We got to leave it there. As usual, you're great, as always, Ann Coulter. Always good to have you here Fridays at 4. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Wish we had more time. The book, Resistance is Futile, How the Trump-Hating Left Lost Its Collective Mind. And to just echo that one point, if they hadn't been planning to impeach this president since before he was even inaugurated, they might have a little more credibility on this one. If they hadn't been screaming that everything this president does is impeachable since day one, literally, then maybe they'd have a little more credibility. But at this point, color be skeptic.